The health department is warning all Oklahoma consumers not to eat crackers from the 15-ounce cans of Nabisco premium saltine crackers. There could be possible contamination. Many of those crackers have a paint or varnish-like smell. Officials say since the cans don't have a code number, they are finding it hard to pinpoint where the bad batch of crackers came from.
I would venture to say not all of that products in those cans would be unsafe, but there is a batch that it appears that there's something peculiar about that batch, and I have no way of determining which batch is contaminated. I have to assume that the whole batch is contaminated at this point until the results come back.
Dr. White says if you've gotten sick after eating crackers from only the 15-ounce Nabisco cans, you should see a doctor as a safety precaution. Ed Stewart, Action for the City County Health Department.
Back in the car.
Well, were you all upset the newsman still?
We always look for a connection between a robbery and any previous robberies. At this time, I don't believe we're in a position to say whether there's a connection between this one and any of the previous savings and loan robberies or not.
The snow and ice stopped falling sometime during the night, but city streets were still treacherous this morning. Overpasses above Interstate 240 in western Oklahoma City seemed especially slick. Maintenance department spreader trucks kept busy spewing ammonium nitrate on corroded slush. The chemical melts ice, but unlike salt, will not corrode bridges. Cars driving over the bridges help speed up the melting process. By noon, warming weather allowed half the crews to go home and gave Maintenance Department Supervisor Fred Owens a chance to grade their performance.
Fred, this is the first time you've really had to call out the crews so far this year. How would you rate them?
I think I'd give it about a 98%. I feel that we were prepared. We stayed prepared. We have men and equipment on standby. We have a sufficient amount of men on duty now. We keep sufficient amount of equipment and men on standby at all times. And I think the situation has been taken care of.
Most of the slush should be melted by now, but the temperature could get below freezing again tonight. So the maintenance department loaded up another batch of trucks with de-icing chemicals just in case they're needed. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Southwest Oklahoma City.
nuclear corporations, including Kerr-McGee, are having to find ways to cut cost, and they've always preferred to be able to do that by violating health and safety standards or getting health and safety standards set aside so that they don't have to include any safety features in what they're doing and don't have to clean up their waste.
When Oklahoma farmers start harvesting their wheat this year, most of them won't be harvesting all that they planted. That is, if they want to be eligible for government price support programs. Agriculture Secretary John Block announced that farmers must reduce wheat acreage by 15% to remain eligible. The production cutback was triggered by the huge 1981 harvest that depressed the market price and left the government with a growing surplus.
Oh, just everybody sowing it from fence to fence.
Most Oklahomans, like the Aldens of Okarche, will run cattle on the wheat that they're going to leave idle. This father and son farming team support John Block's move.
I'm all for it 100%. I'm just getting started, and it's just no money in it, and you just can't try to get started without your dad's help, or, you know, you just can't borrow enough money to keep it going. You got to get the wheat price up.
There's too much wheat in the country, and if we would set some of it aside to get back to the supply and demand.
The manager of Farmers Co-op in Okarche says there's just too much wheat in the world. And Francis Schaefer says the acreage reduction is necessary. That is, if farmers ever want a decent price for their wheat. Ben McCain, Action 4, Canadian County.
It's downtown Oklahoma City, and it's the lunch hour. A perfect chance to catch a glimpse of people and their attire as they shuttle off to lunch. What did we find? A little of everything. Some people came prepared for the rain by carrying umbrellas. Others acted like they were getting ready for a cruise to the Bahamas. Their excuse for not dressing warmer was that they were rarely outdoors except to hop across the block from one building to another. Oklahomans have pretty well been taking our good weather for granted, so today, when they saw the temperatures dipping, they were put to the test when faced with the prospect of a major winter storm.
Until about 2 years ago, I lived in the Rockies, and when the temperature for 90 days only gets above 32 2 or 3 days, then a day like today is not bad at all. It's very nice.
Well, the radio said there's going to be 3 to 5 inches, so here I am. I'm ready for it.
Do you think it's going to snow today?
That's what they say. That's what the weatherman says.
Do you believe him?
Oh, yeah. I wish it would. I want to go home. I've been sitting at the office wishing it would snow all day.
Not bad. That's just right.
So you can tell a lot about a person and whether they think it'll snow by what they wear. Reporters are always dressed for the occasion because whether it snows or not, we're out in it. And it is cold. Bella Shaw, Action 4 in downtown Oklahoma City.
Winoka, Oklahoma was one of the towns hit hardest by the storm. The only easy way to get there today was by air. Plows are busy on the highways, but they can't keep up. It doesn't take long for the wind to cover the roads again. Many motorists were stranded overnight and probably will be again tonight. Garfield County officials have asked everyone to restrict traffic to emergency situations. But it is an emergency for livestock. Cattle are cut off from pasture land and ranchers have to take the expensive feed to them. But just south of Waynoka, in Fairview, Oklahoma, road conditions haven't kept too many people indoors. As a matter of fact, there's some people traveling around that say they like this kind of weather.
It only happens once a year. I like it. I like a little bit of snow every once in a while, but I hope we don't get no more.
I like it.
Why?
I'm from South Dakota up in the Black Hills, and I'm used to a little bit more than down here. We used to get 32 inches in one shot, so I went out skiing yesterday.
It may not be much trouble in town, but tonight the temperature will be just above zero, and the Oklahoma Highway Patrol advises you to stay off the highways. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Fairview, Oklahoma.
During this cold and snowy weather, most farmers in the state are either at home watching TV or at the coffee shop like this one in Watonga. But for cattlemen, it's a different story. In order to check on their livestock, they must battle the sometimes icy, snow-packed roads. But that's not the hard part. They're doing that in a nice, warm pickup. The pain comes, if that's what you want to call it, when they step outside. Because of the freezing conditions, many cattlemen across the state had to break ice. Stanley Hoare, a cattleman in Blaine County, says the snow was needed, but it means extra work. Cattle, just like people, need water.
It's good in some ways, in other ways it's a pain.
Explain, what do you mean the pain?
Well, it's got to be out here every day feeding hay, and it could run short of hay during the winter. But we had a good summer, so most people got plenty of hay.
Even though the snow causes some hardship for cattlemen, almost all of them will tell you the wheat crop across the state needed the moisture, and they're proud of it. But they must have some reservations, especially when they've been out in the cold a long time. Ben McCain, Action 4 in Blaine County.
Or you want to talk to someone?
Just a moment. Bob Macy, District Attorney.
Have a seat and I'll get somebody.
The calls flooded into the district attorney's office switchboard all morning. Almost without exception, people were calling to voice their approval of a 6-week, $10,000 investigation into auto repair fraud. The lawsuits filed against 6 businesses are believed to be the first to invoke Oklahoma's 1980 Consumer Protection Act. Oklahoma County DA Bob Macy says the public reaction is because consumer fraud is a crime that touches everyone sooner or later, and one he should not have to prosecute.
Well, quite often I'm asked about why I dress the way I do. And I think the reason is because that I'd like to turn the clock back 100 years or nearly that long, or at least back 50 years to when people could be trusted. And in the old days, if a merchant in a town was ripping someone off, in the community where I was raised, if someone ripped my dad off, he'd go home and tell all of the neighbors, and the guy'd be out of business in 30 days. And I think it's a real indictment of our society that your wife or my wife can't go out and get the brakes repaired on her car without being ripped off. And it's not just brakes, it's transmissions, it's TV repair, it's, you know, everything you can name. And I see the Consumer Protection Act and the actions we're taking of being a way of forcing the merchants to treat the citizens with honesty and respect.
Macy says 2 of the 8 auto repair shops checked did the right work and charged a reasonable price. They were Moore Conoco and J.C. Penney. Macy says he isn't going to leave mechanics alone now. The investigation is continuing. More repair shops will be checked, and the investigation will expand into other areas where consumer fraud is possible. Ted Brown, Action 4.
everybody.
The bill's author, Representative Jerry Wikel, says his concern was duplication of effort when he made the proposal to combine the two agencies. He says he feels the two agencies would operate more efficiently with one head.
We've got agents in both agencies. They both license people. The ABC board, they license the liquor stores. The Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, they license pharmacists and doctors. And I think we could combine these administrative functions and put in one division, and put the law enforcement in another division. We'd get a lot better efficiency in state government.
ABC Director Richard Crisp does not believe that a merger would solve the state's liquor or narcotics problems.
Can't be done by this agency. Can't be done by a combination of this agency and a narcotics agency. With all the drug problems you have in Oklahoma, coupled with all the liquor problems, and I might add the liquor problems are far greater in my view than the drug problems are, you just have an insurmountable task, a very difficult task, and I don't think it'd be workable.
The Narcotics Bureau Director, Warren Henderson, echoes Crisp's concern.
Like I said, the only area where I could really see some problems is, first of all, our investigations are private and confidential. We do not fall under any board at this time. I think we do a superior job, law enforcement-wise, on the cases we make, on handling our civil hearings. So I would have tremendous reservations about having an ABC board having any input into the Bureau of Narcotics.
Henderson says he will abide by whatever decision the state legislature makes, and the merger is said to have support in the chamber. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
This is the Rader Diagnostic Center in Sand Springs. It's home for many deprived children in Oklahoma or children just in need of supervision. It's also the home of the Intensive Treatment Center, where the state's most hardcore juvenile delinquents end up. High fences separate the 50 boys and 5 girls in the Intensive Treatment Center from the outside world. Inside the compound, every move is monitored by closed-circuit TV. The security is necessary. Most of these tough teenagers have been convicted of violent crimes, rape, armed robbery, or even murder. Some have beaten up staff members at other juvenile institutions. That fact must be remembered when the students speak of physical abuse at other state-run facilities, such as the Helena State School for Boys.
Just constantly down there, the staff's always jumping students. Or either it's the students jumping staff, but that's very seldom, but here it's a whole different story. Ain't nothing like that.
Staff would be escalating a situation where that a student does blow up. I've seen that a lot of times. Myself has did that. But physically striking out on students, there's been no such a thing here at ITC. Never. Because I've been here since the place opened up.
The Intensive Treatment Center has a detention area, but it isn't used for solitary confinement of unruly youngsters. Instead, the kids are forced to confront their problems.
The whole purpose of the program is to create a helping environment, helping, caring atmosphere. And I think that has been communicated to the residents, and they feel safe here.
Assignment to ITC needn't be permanent. If these teenagers play their cards right and make progress on their problems, they could earn the right to move to a facility which allows more freedom. Now, a recently published report claims a male staff member in the Intensive Treatment Center helped strip search a female student last fall. We'll tell you what really happened tonight at 10. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the Rader Diagnostic Center in Sand Springs.
got the student's name, did not censor it, and then sent the letter back to the student, if he, but if he signed it.
About the Norwood incident, that night you were supposedly shackled, laying on the floor, and you were kicked in the head by your superintendent. Is that what happened?
No, ma'am. I was not kicked by Mr. Norwood.
What happened then?
I was laying there. I was shackled and handcuffed, and Mr. Norwood kept telling me just to calm down and stuff, and because I kept telling him to take the shackles and stuff off of me, and he just kept telling me to calm down and stuff, and he stepped in front of me and he was looking down at me, and I was cussing him and stuff, and he just kept asking me why I was cussing him, that he hadn't never done nothing to me, and I was highly intoxicated. And
He never laid a hand on you?
No, ma'am.
Why were you in shackles?
Because I had tried to kick down the door, and I was fighting all the staff people that were in there.
And do you feel that the shackles is the way to restrain you?
Yes, if you got a juvenile that, you could, like, you break them windows or something and you cut yourself up, then yes, a juvenile needs to be shackled. If he's going to act crazy, he needs to be.
On the fourth day of County Commissioner Bill Boston's kickback trial, the prosecution has rested his case after calling a number of material suppliers to the witness stand. Those suppliers say that Boston did take kickback money from them. But then the defense called witnesses of its own to the stand. Those building suppliers say that the county commissioner didn't take any money from them. This is the first time the government doesn't have a taped conversation where the county commissioner allegedly did take kickback money. So it will be left up to jurors on whether or not which side they believe. Judge Luther Eubanks listened as both sides tried to paint a character picture of Boston. Defense attorney James Stipe is expected to bring in more witnesses from Major County tomorrow. Stipe is confident he can show his client is an honest commissioner. The jury has been warned not to let the confessions of other commissioners in the state influence their verdict. Jury members may be listening to closing arguments by Monday. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Federal Courthouse. Both the prosecution and the defense have rested their cases in the kickback trial of Commissioner William T. Boston. The defense has tried to paint a picture of Boston as a law-abiding citizen, while the prosecution contends that Boston was just one of many commissioners caught up in the kickback scheme. At one point, Boston himself took the witness stand. Boston told the jury that he didn't know why building and material suppliers were lying on him, and he says he's never been offered a kickback from anyone. Assistant U.S. Attorney Bill Price countered by saying suppliers had nothing to gain by testifying Boston took kickbacks from them. But defense attorney James Stipe argued that the suppliers would say anything the government wanted in order to reduce charges against them. Stipe added it was just the word of one man against another. Judge Luther Eubanks instructed the jury not to let the guilty confessions of other county commissioners influence their verdict. The jury is still out at this hour. If found guilty, Boston could face a 300-year prison sentence for the 55-count indictment. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at Federal Court.
What's the name of that complex?
We received a call to 3300 block of South Woodward in reference to a subject solicited for hospice, described as a white male with a dark overcoat with a red stocking cap. He's possibly accompanied with another male that's going down the other side of the street at the same time. All we have here is a white male with light brown hair.
Did the persons calling say what the two solicitors are saying?
They didn't get any special details except that they were trying to get money for the terminally ill people.